Hello and welcome to the National Organic Program Update webinar by Miles McEvoy, hosted by eOrganic. My name is Alice Formiga and I'm the webinar coordinator for eOrganic. eOrganic is the organic agriculture community of practice with eExtension. You can find all of our published articles, videos, and our many upcoming and recorded webinars on organic farming and research topics on our website at extension.org/organic_production. We are very pleased to have the opportunity to host Miles McEvoy as our guest speaker today. Miles currently serves as the Deputy Administrator of the USDA National Organic Program. Prior to coming to the USDA, he led the Organic Certification Program at the Washington State Department of Agriculture, and he has been working in the field of organic agriculture for more than 2 decades.
So now I'm going to move on to a new initiative which we call Sound and Sensible, which is how to maintain organic integrity in a sound and sensible manner. So what we have found is that after 10 years of implementation of the National Organic Program, we've created a fairly complex regulatory scheme. That's a very strict process-based oversight by the certifiers in terms of inspections and record keeping and audits. And there has been some downside to that. Some of the issues that we've identified is that, as I mentioned, an inconsistent certification process. Not all certifiers are operating the same way. There's been a focus on record keeping, so on paperwork, not practices. There's the expense of certification that can be significant for small operations. There's also the time involved in being inspected by the organic inspector and maintaining those records. That takes a lot of time away from farming activities as well. And we do know that many farms comply with the organic standards but are avoiding certification because of these costs or record-keeping burdens. So what we want to do is to move from what we see as the blue state in the upper left of a burdensome process and paperwork that addresses all the factors of organic integrity but needs streamlining. So we are integrity focused right now, but we feel that the record-keeping process, the certification process, could be streamlined and be more reasonable for operations to verify organic production. So we move to a sound and sensible, which is in the upper right to the green section, where we have efficient certification that focus tightly on the key elements that lead to organic integrity. We want to stay away from the red areas. So the lower left, which would be poor certification, which we lose organic integrity, an ineffective and inefficient certification process, but would fail to address the key elements of organic integrity, or by focusing on streamlining the process, become efficient but inadequate to protect organic integrity, which is in the lower right. So what we're trying to do is move from, we'll identify those burdensome aspects and see how we can streamline to get into the green, to have a more sound and sensible approach to certification, so we lower those burdens on especially those smaller operations. So, making organic certification affordable, accessible, and attainable for all operations. What we mean by affordable is reasonable fees and reasonable compliance costs. What we mean by accessible, that there's certifiers and technical assistance available locally. We think that makes a big difference. That's why you see in certain states lots of certified organic operations and relatively limited number of certified organic operations in the South, because there's not local certifiers and technical assistance available in those states. And then finally, attainable, clear and understandable standards using plain language and with reasonable record-keeping requirements. So our current initiatives, we're doing a business process survey where we're assessing the key certification barriers for small businesses and identifying ways to reduce the paperwork burden. We're assembling that information, and we'll be having a report that will be available later this year to identify those key barriers. The National Organic Standards Board has a continuous improvement initiative that they are working on. There'll be more discussions about that at the upcoming April meeting in Portland, Oregon. They're looking at ways to certify the practices rather than the paperwork. And then we've also received many ideas from certifying agents who are also trying to to address this particular problem. So the ideas that we've come up with so far, this is going to take us a while to identify and to implement these ideas, but these are the ideas that we've come up with so far. In terms of our accreditation audits, these are the audits that we conduct over the certifying agents. How can we emphasize during those audits the verification of practices by the certifiers rather than the paperwork? The second one is record-keeping requirements. Could we provide a definitive list of required records to organic farmers and handlers that certifiers would need to accept, rather than have a variety of different records that are maintained and different by different certifying agents around the country or around the world. The third one is having a common set of organic system plans. Can we establish a common set of adequate organic system plans where the certifiers, the producers, and handlers would use one set of organic system plans and not have the variety of different formats that we see that certifiers are using around the country. The fourth one, let's look at the organic system plans themselves. They tend to be quite lengthy. Can we take another look at that to maximize the value on the key elements of the organic system and minimizing the record-keeping burdens on farms and handlers? Looking at inspector qualifications, how can we incorporate training and guidelines for inspectors to ensure that they're consistently doing the work and approaching certification from a sound and sensible perspective? Next, cost share is a problem that was available in all 50 states. This year it's only available in 16 states, so we're looking at the FSA microloans to potentially help beginning organic farmers cover the cost of certification. The seventh idea is to continue to create a level playing field for direct marketers. So how could we ensure that direct organic marketers comply with certification requirements? We have a NLP complaint process. About half of the complaints that we receive are about non-certified operations making organic claims. We need to continue to do that enforcement to ensure that the only ones making organic claims are either exempt or ones certified under the USDA organic standards, so everybody's playing by the same rules. The eighth concept is technical assistance. How can we collaborate with NRCS to better provide technical assistance to organic and transitional farmers? And finally, outreach. How can we help beginning farmers and direct marketing operations understand certification? So these are our initial ideas in terms of how we can implement some of the sound and sensible concepts. As I said, we're going to continue to identify what are the key burdens for smaller operations and come up with additional ideas to see how we can make the certification process reasonable while protecting organic integrity. So the Sound and Sensible initiative fits into our strategic priorities in terms of market access for small and local producers that are getting into local markets, getting them that access, providing clear standards so they understand what the requirements are. Information technology we feel will make be a tool that can be used in the Sound and Sensible initiative. And then first and foremost, that our job is to protect organic integrity and to ensure consumer protection, that organic means organic no matter where you purchase the product or whether it comes from a local source or from overseas. Okay, next, and this is I think the final topic, is our what we're doing specifically in 2013. So the specific topics that we're working on this year, Sunset 2013 is, as I said, the substances that are on the national list have to be re-reviewed every 5 years. So we have some substances that are going through the re-review process in 2013. We're doing some national list rulemaking on sodium nitrate. We're working on proposed rules for origin of livestock, pet food, and aquaculture. We're implementing the residue testing requirements, which is the new rule that was finalized last year, implementing requirements for unannounced inspections for certifying agents. We have additional guidance documents that are coming out this year. We just published final guidance on organic seeds and planting stock. We hope to have some additional guidance on grower groups. We'll have some additional instructions on inspector qualifications and guidance on handling unpackaged organic products. We have draft guidance that will be coming out shortly on the classification of materials and a permitted substances list for crops. We are finalizing our corrective actions based on the Office of Inspector General milk audit that was conducted last year. We continue to verify our international trade partnerships with the countries that we recognize their organic systems, or Canada and the EU, which we have equivalency agreements with. We're increasing our international market access. We're working specifically with Japan to potentially enter into an equivalency arrangement with Japan later this year. The Sound and Sensible initiative, working to reduce the certification burden on diversified direct marketing operations in particular. We're looking at posting additional audits and compliance information on our website. Continuing to support and coordinate the National Organic Standards Board. The work of the board, which is so important for our success, is to have that be a good, transparent process that provides us good recommendations that we can implement. And then continuing improvements of the accreditation process and the oversight of certifying agents. So you can learn a lot more about the National Organic Program on our website. We have a lot of information there.
Unmuted.
Program handbook, a lot of information on list of certified organic operations, which will be updated for 2012 relatively shortly. International trade agreements. Lots of information on our website. And also, last initiative here at USDA. So we have now created a training program, which we call Organic 101 and Organic 201 for USDA staff, specifically for field offices. And we've had great success of getting this training out to USDA staff around the country. This training is also available on our website to anyone that's interested. You just go to that particular website for more information about our organic literacy initiative. Lots of information comes out frequently, lots of different information about the organic program. So you can subscribe at that particular site. And that, I think, okay, let's see. Questions. So thank you very much for listening, and look forward to answering any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you very much, Miles. We had a couple of questions related to the dairy example that you provided about the cheddar cheese. So let's see if we can go back to those here. Yeah, once a dairy cow is treated with an antibiotic, is she never in her lifetime able to produce milk that will be labeled organic? If you could talk about that. We've had a few questions coming in about that.
Yeah, once an animal has been treated with a prohibited substance, then it has to be removed from the organic string and could not re-enter the herd. That's correct.
Okay. And one more about cows. Shouldn't cows be managed organically from birth, or is it only during a herd transition that you can have cattle that are managed in the last third of gestation?
Yeah, so this is one of the proposed rules that we're hoping to get out later this year. So there's actually two ways that a dairy animal can get into organic production. For a new operation, they can transition cows using 100% organic feed and organic practices for 12 months before the production of organic milk. And if they transition to organic production by bringing those animals through that 1-year transitional period of using organic practices, they could continue to bring in animals following organic practices for 1 year prior to milk production. Other operations that have come into organic certification need to use all the replacement animals have to be organic from the last third of gestation. So the animals are organic. The mother cow has to be organic, no prohibited substances, 100% organic feed from the last third of gestation, and then her calf has to be raised organically and then can be in the organic herd. So what we're doing in the proposed rule is to clarify and follow the recommendations from the National Organic Standards Board to eliminate that two-track system so that there's only one system for bringing organic dairy stock into organic production.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying that. Here's a couple of
hope I
comments.
clarified that. That's a difficult topic.
The we have a few questions and comments about the record keeping streamlining you were discussing. This listener said that she's been certified organic for 13 years and she's seen the paperwork burden increase every year for dairy operations. And so she was wondering if the NLP is able to assist certifiers to reduce the paperwork burden while getting the verification they require.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at. We do understand that the paperwork burden for dairy operations increased significantly with the publication of the pasture rule, which came into full implementation in 2011. So what the organic community was experiencing were a lot of complaints about operations, organic operations that were not pasture-based, that were not grazing their animals. And so through a period of time with lots of public input, it came up with the agreement that there should be this requirement that during the grazing season that the organic ruminant livestock had to receive a significant portion of their feed from grazing. So that specific requirement is that 30% of their dry matter intake has to come from pasture during the grazing season. And in order for that to be verified, there's a lot of additional records that need to be maintained to verify that that particular requirement of 30% dry matter intake. Yes, so there is additional record keeping that's required to meet that new pasture rule. And that's one of the things that we specifically need to look at of how do we make those requirements reasonable while still protecting the integrity to ensure that all operations are, all organic operations are pasture-based.
Okay, here's a question. If you could talk about the status of Chilean nitrate.
Yeah. Sodium nitrate is a natural substance and has been on the national list of prohibited non-synthetics or prohibited naturals since the beginning of the National Organic Program. So it was on the prohibited list, but it had an annotation that allowed operations to use sodium nitrate for up to 20% of their total nitrogen input. So even though it was on the prohibited list, there was still an allowance to use some sodium nitrate for the nitrogen needs of the crop. A few years ago, the National Organic Standards Board made a recommendation during the sunset process to remove sodium nitrate from an allowed material and make it prohibited. So remove that allowance for 20% sodium nitrate was their recommendation. So what would occur is a change in the annotation on the national list. So this is a natural substance that was prohibited with an allowance, and so the change to the national list was to get rid of that annotation and just to have it listed as a prohibited natural substance. During the rulemaking process, we've had some delay in terms of getting the proposed rule out on that, because any change to the national list has to go through a proposed and final rulemaking with public comment. So we've had a delay in getting a proposed rule out on sodium nitrate. So sodium nitrate is now, because of sunset, no longer on the national list of prohibited substances. And so there's no longer a specific regulatory restriction on sodium nitrate. So as a natural substance, it can be used in organic production in the U.S. under the U.S. National Organic Standards. We have sent out a memo to certifying agents and to organic producers that any use of sodium nitrate above that 20% restriction would potentially impact other parts of the organic regulations that require a balanced soil management plan. And so we're expecting that most organic producers will still comply with having only using sodium nitrate for up to 20% of their nitrogen inputs while we're finalizing the rulemaking on this particular topic. We do have a proposed rule that will be coming out later this year that will propose to put sodium nitrate on the prohibited list, removing the annotation. But until that rulemaking process is finalized, there's no specific restriction on the use of sodium nitrate.
Okay, thank you. Is there any update regarding, oh wait, no, let's see. Do you anticipate, I'll ask that question next. Do you anticipate a return of cost share outside of the 16 states that are currently covered?
We don't know what will occur with that. We're waiting for the next Farm Bill. There's been an extension of the Farm Bill, and in the extension of the Farm Bill, that did not include the National Organic Certification Cost Share Program. So it's up to Congress to determine what happens with the national program.
Okay. Is there any update regarding the idea of an organic checkoff program?
Not from this office, no. Okay. I think that's an initiative that the Organic Trade Association has been exploring, and I understand that they've been doing some listening sessions around the country, but that would have to go through Congress as well, and so there's nothing coming out of USDA or this office in that regard.
Okay. Has the NLP been encouraged or concerned regarding the number of violations discovered, and how does that compare with several years ago, since it's been growing for 10 years?
With the increase in the number of violations?
It just says, have you been concerned regarding the number of violations discovered?
Oh, okay. No, not really. For the vast majority of operations comply with the organic standards. There's a wide variety of different types of violations, so certifiers, well, one of the basic concepts of organic is continuous improvement. There are many requirements that organic producers and handlers have to meet, and so part of that process of continuous improvement is the audit process. The inspectors go out, they look at the organic system, they look at what the operation is doing, and sometimes they find minor violations. Those are correctable violations that the operation then needs to improve or correct to stay in compliance. So that's the vast majority of violations that we see in our oversight of certifiers, and also when we conduct audits of certifying agents. The audits that we've done of certifying agents shows that of all the criteria that they need to conduct and comply with, that they are 96% compliant, full compliance with the accreditation and certification criteria, and that's with over 4,000 audit criteria that were checked in 2012. There was 96% compliance by the certifying agents. I think we see a similar trend with organic operations as well, so that the types of violations, the vast majority of violations that we see are minor correctable violations. Significant violations are really important, and that's we take them very seriously. Last year we helped to put 3 people in jail for fraudulently representing products as organic. Well, 2 had to do with fertilizers, where they were spiking fertilizers with synthetic nitrogen. Those were long-term investigations, but the 2 gentlemen went to jail for spiking fertilizer with synthetic nitrogen and selling it as approved organic fertilizer to organic producers. And then 1 gentleman went to jail for fraudulently selling feed as organic that was conventional feed. So those things are very important, and we take those seriously.
Now we have a couple of questions about fraud. The first one is, how should we handle and report a suspicion of fraud when a product is processed outside of the United States? And the second question is, with the Sound and Sensible initiative, how will reduced record keeping play into research for cases of fraud? So those are 2 questions, and so I can repeat if necessary.
Well, we have an email address, nopcompliance@usda.gov. So that's nopcompliance@usda.gov, and we take complaints from all over the world of any violation to the USDA organic regulations. So whether it's domestic or foreign, we get those types of complaints, and all those complaints are investigated to determine whether or not there's a violation, and when a violation is found, then appropriate enforcement action occurs. Now we have more authority in the U.S. than we have in foreign countries. So, for instance, one of the things that we've done the last couple of years is identified some fraudulent certificates. They are generally from foreign countries, where a marketer is trying to sell organic product with a fraudulent certificate. And there we don't have the authority to fine a foreign operation. We'll work with a foreign government if that's possible. But our main tactic for those types of fraudulent certificates is to inform the organic community that those certificates are fraudulent, and we do that through the Organic Insider. So, okay, the second question was about record keeping and sound and sensible.
Yeah, how will reduced record keeping play into research for cases of fraud?
Right. Well, we're not going to reduce record keeping if it would decrease organic integrity. So our first principle is to maintain organic integrity. But there's a lot of records out there. And what are the key records that are necessary to maintain that integrity? And we know that there are records that certifiers are requiring operations to maintain that don't add any value to protecting organic integrity. Those records that are important for maintaining organic integrity, those will still be required to be maintained. The lack of records, the lack of appropriate records will lead to violations, compliance actions. If it's significant, could lead to suspension or revocation and civil penalties. So we're not going to reduce record keeping if it's important to maintain organic integrity. What we're trying to do is identify those types of records that do not add value to maintaining organic integrity.
Okay. Given that certified operations are lacking in the South, is there a specific plan or strategy to address that deficiency, and what factors are contributing to the deficiency?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So far what we've done is identified that there is a lack of certified organic operations, or not as many certified organic operations in the South. We're looking at ideas, exploring why is that happening, and it's a difficult area for us to address because of our limited resources, but we are talking to other agencies at USDA to see what can we do to try to build capacity in that region.
Okay, here's a question about inspector qualifications. Will these be changing in the near future, and how can we stay informed on this if they are planning to take part in some IOIA trainings this year but don't want to partake in something that will not be acceptable to the NOP in the future?
Yeah, well, the NOP has not published anything specific on the qualifications of organic inspectors or reviewers or certification staff. We have worked with the Independent Organic Inspectors Association to develop qualifications and criteria for organic certification review staff and inspectors, and we plan to publish that later this year. That would provide that that oversight of what, or that overview of what we expect in terms of qualifications, training, and experience for everyone that's involved in the organic certification process. And that will provide the guidance to certifiers and to inspectors on what we expect in that area. Currently, the organic regulations state that certifiers have to have qualified personnel to do the work that have adequate experience. We've provided information at training that the experience needs to include education, experience, and what the instructions will do is provide a lot more detail on what those expectations are. So IOIA training we've always supported as one key training program that can be utilized by certifiers and inspectors to learn about organic production, but there's many other things that can also provide that expertise as well.
Okay. What do you see as the role of land-grant universities for providing research on cultural practices and guidelines for following the NLP regulations?
The role of land-grant universities. Well, some land-grant universities are doing a lot to support organic agriculture, and so by supporting things like eOrganic and workshops working with the organic certifiers that are in the region to provide information about what the organic requirements are. So I think land-grant universities can do a lot to provide information to the agricultural community about what the requirements are. I think they need to be engaged with the certifiers that are active. Sometimes it would be the State Department of Agriculture, to ensure that the information that's provided to the ag community is aligned with the requirements. But certainly we would encourage land-grant universities to work with the organic community, agricultural community, to provide information about the requirements. The Organic Literacy Initiative is a very good resource for land-grant universities to look at for the specifics about the organic requirements. The NLP Organic Insider can keep land-grant universities informed about any changes in those standards or things that are particular interest to those land-grant universities. So, yeah, more involvement by land grants would be very welcomed.
Okay. Could you discuss whether Omri is related to the NLP?
That's a very good question. So the Organic Materials Review Institute is an independent organization that reviews substances to determine whether they're compliant with the USDA organic regulations. They publish a generic list of allowed crop, livestock, and handling materials. They also provide a product list, which is their main service, that shows which substances, what specific substances, for instance, what BT products or what fertilizers, what soil amendments, what livestock feed supplements comply with the National Organic Standards. So Omri is accredited under USDA's ISO Guide 65 program, which is a program that shows that they have a quality management system in place that that meets international standards for a certification agency. And so the National Organic Program does recognize the work that Omri does, and that the decisions that Omri makes on materials are acceptable to the NOP as a viable way to verify that a substance meets the organic standards. So organic producers, organic handlers, and certifiers can all utilize the Omri review and list of approved substances and know that those substances comply with the National Organic Standards. The National Organic Standards Board has made a couple of recommendations concerning the review of materials. And one of those recommendations is that the USDA should directly accredit material review organizations such as Omri. And so we're looking at mechanisms to have even more oversight over the work that Omri conducts. But at the current time, Omri is an independent nonprofit organization that we recognize, but is not directly accredited by the National Organic Program, though it is accredited by USDA as under the ISO Guide 65 program.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Can you address the different standards in Canada and Europe regarding the equivalency program you previously described? For example, differing standards regarding antibiotic use in Europe and Canada in animals versus the NLP standards in the U.S.
Sure. So both in Canada and in the EU, there is some allowance for the use of antibiotics in organic livestock production. In the U.S., there is no allowance whatsoever for antibiotic use in organic livestock production. So in our equivalency agreements with both the EU and Canada, that was what we call a critical variance. So something that was not acceptable, and that any product, any livestock product that comes from Canada or the EU needs to be verified that it was not produced with antibiotics. So so we have a broad acceptance of, for instance, the European organic standards and any organic product that's certified under the European organic standards. But for livestock products, that there's an additional requirement that any livestock products that were produced in the EU would have to be verified that they were that no antibiotics had been used in that production. We also have a critical variance going the other way because antibiotics, specifically tetracycline and streptomycin, are allowed in organic crop production, specifically for fire blight control in organic apple and pear production in the U.S., and that's not allowed in the EU. So any organic products that are going from the U.S. to the EU, if they include apples and pears, they have to be verified that those organic apples and pears were not produced with the use of tetracycline or streptomycin.
Okay. Let's see. Given the 2012 OIG milk audit, what is the proposal to increase the enforcement or detection of GMs in milk?
Yeah, the phase 1 of the Office of Inspector General milk audit.
Uh-oh, we lost your sound again, Miles. Hang on a second. Let's see, your sound has disappeared. I don't know if you can hear me. There you are. Okay. Oh, we disconnected again. I think we'll be able to get him back since we have the last few times, so just wait a moment. Okay, you're back. You there, Miles?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, I hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, perfect timing. GM question, and I go off the air. The milk audit noted that their recommendation or their finding was that they had questions about the oversight, the testing of organic feed to determine that it was not produced or wasn't genetically modified feed. So the let's see now. So what we did is we took a look at that and we analyzed the situation, and we provided a report to the OIG just a couple of weeks ago that's available on our website that describes the sampling and the GM detection technology that's out there that can be utilized by certifying agents to verify that organic feed is not genetically modified. And we also described the guidance that we've provided to certifiers concerning residue testing, including testing for prohibited pesticides and other prohibited substances. And so we just submitted that report to the Office of Inspector General just a few weeks ago, and that report on I can't remember the full title of the report, but something like biotech testing methods and sampling methods for organic agriculture is available and describes the guidance that we provide. We also provided training to the certifiers in January in Orlando, Florida, on how to conduct testing and analyze results for both pesticides and other prohibited substances. The real key for a certifier, if they find residues of a prohibited substance or residues of GM material, is to determine whether or not that substance has been used or whether it's adventitious presence or the result of commingling or inadequate buffers. And different tactics are then utilized depending upon why those residues are there. So for instance, if a certifier did testing and found that the feed was 100% GM, then that would indicate that the product was genetically modified. That would be a significant violation leading to suspension or revocation, possible civil penalties. The other thing that could be determined is that during testing that there was like 50% GM material. Again, that would not be inadvertent presence. That would indicate that there was a problem with commingling and significant contamination that was occurring during the handling of that organic feed. On the other hand, if you found very low levels of GM material or any prohibited substance, then that would mean you have to do an investigation to determine why that material is there, but that would tend to have you look at things like inadequate buffer zones or inadequate cleaning of equipment, things that are correctable, that are important to correct, but don't indicate the use of genetically modified ingredients. So in terms of the OIG milk audit finding, we have responded to that, and that report is available on our website.
Okay, we are unfortunately running out of time, but I'd like to thank everyone for their questions